So I was just thinking about, for the past 5-10 minutes, how to segue into this video. Then I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't, because I've been doing it the past couple of videos. And also, I don't want you guys jumping to the conclusion that all I do is segue to videos. But saying that, actually, talking about jumping, how do you get smooth footage if you are jumping on video? That is what this video is about. We are going to learn some different techniques, both with a gimbal and not a gimbal, of how to get smooth footage. And hopefully we can learn some interesting new ideas, and sometimes you don't even need photography equipment to get some really smooth footage. Let's go. So what you just saw there was a little sequence of me transitioning from Halloween to Christmas, as you can probably already tell. Now, you may be thinking also, that was really smooth and really cool. How did I film that? It was actually no gimbal. It was all creative camera movements, tips and tricks. But you also may be thinking now, what would that look like if that was filmed with a gimbal? Well, don't even think about it, because this is exactly what it would have looked like. Now, depending on how you saw it, maybe you noticed the difference, maybe you didn't, but don't worry about that, because that is what this video is for. We're going to kind of discuss the pros and cons of both no gimbal and a gimbal, and whether you should really buy one, or maybe save your money and just try and get really creative with your shots. Let's get into the video. You know, I thought to myself, it'd be a bit weird me making this video, and if I didn't have proper knowledge on both the non-gimbal and the gimbal. So obviously, well, I think most things I do are with no gimbals, and you know, I feel like I've got the experience on that side. However, with a gimbal, I don't really use them that much. So what I decided to do was, you know, just have a little play with one and get a bit of experience with it, you know, see how it works, how easy it is, and some other things. And this is basically my little pro and con list of what I think are the pros and cons of a gimbal and no gimbal. So first, the pros of a gimbal is that it's super smooth and it's super lightweight. When you are on set, anywhere where you are using your gimbal, you don't want to be carrying around this massive weight with you, because you know, if you're filming all day, you'll be aching by tomorrow morning. So you want something that's really lightweight, and obviously you want something that gives you that smooth factor that you're looking for. So that's 2 pros to the gimbal. Now saying that, the cons, they have a bit of effect on what I just said. Basically, one con is that you can only go as fast and as efficient as your gimbal's motor. Now obviously what we were using with a phone gimbal, and I guess some issues that I found was that sometimes I wanted kind of a faster movement. However, you can only go as fast as the joystick can let you go, which isn't that much of a problem, but it's definitely something to consider. Also, I'd say, to be honest, if you really want to be good with a gimbal, you do need to put quite a bit of time and effort into learning how it works. Because I used it for, I think it was about an hour or something, and I found that it didn't do everything that I wanted it to do, or at least what I wanted at the time. I mean, most of it I got done, and as you can see, it worked in the little sequence we did at the beginning. I just found that, you know, sometimes I had a bit of issues with it. You know, again, sometimes it wouldn't go in a certain direction or a certain angle, but maybe that was just me, I don't know. But yeah, that's another thing to consider if you're going to get a gimbal. Next is the pros and cons for no gimbal. Now first of all, maybe I'm a little biased on this one because obviously I don't use a gimbal, so I'm kind of used to what I'm about to tell you. But again, if you're kind of new to this might actually help quite a bit. So the first pro is basically you can get as creative with your shots as you can imagine. And what I mean by that is there's nothing really stopping you getting a certain shot, because you can use anything, as you're going to see very soon. Another pro is you really do have a lot of control over your movements. And again, what I mean by that is you're not held back by motors or, I guess, anything that can be in your way if you're using a single piece like a gimbal. You can really use anything that's in your home, and you'll see what I mean in a second when I say that. But you can basically use anything to give you smooth footage as long as you're creative enough and you can use it well. Now, I guess the cons for no gimbal are pretty much what the gimbal is great for, if that makes sense. I don't feel like it does. Basically, one con would just be there's a chance if you don't use a gimbal, you could be carrying a lot of weight with you. And I mean, you might be okay with that, but again, long days on set, it might take its toll on you. Another con would be you may not get the very smooth footage that you're planning to get. Just naturally, by having your hand doing the movement, by moving back and forth yourself, there's a chance it won't be super smooth compared to a gimbal. There are some kind of ways you can go about it, but I'll tell you about that next. So that's it. That is my pros and cons list. Very short and it's very minimal. And you may be thinking, is that it? Well, it's not, but I feel like that is the basics you kind of want to know if you're going to buy one. It's the stuff that probably pops up the most as well. But you know what? I think I've talked a lot about the pros and cons. Let me actually show you some of the little tips and tricks, little moves we've been doing to get that super smooth footage of the Halloween to Christmas. Let's go. First, the ninja walk. Now it looks a bit funny, but if you're going handheld, with a little bit of practice, you can get some really smooth footage. The second one is the vertical tilt. Now with this one, there is a little tip you can do to help you get even smoother footage than using it pretty basically. Now depending which tripod you have, whether it's one with a handle, it's a fluid head, just depending which one it is, if you can tighten it a little bit, just so you gotta put a little bit more effort in the pull and push, it should look really smooth when you're moving up and down. By having the tripod actually push against your direction, it should prevent any jittery sudden movements that your hand might do just naturally just from pushing it up and down. The third one, the horizontal pan. This one is also very effective as well, as long as you do these extra little things to help you get that crisp, smooth footage. Like the vertical tilt, you want to tighten your tripod head so there is more resistance when doing the movement. This should minimize the jittery, sudden movements that the camera might pick up just from the way your hand naturally moves. And sometimes when you are panning, your hand may stop and start also, which doesn't really help if you're going for that continuous smooth shot. If you want even smoother footage, wrap either an elastic band or your camera strap around the handle and gently pull it. This again should also minimize any sudden hand movements. Just make sure your tripod has a firm stance or it's weighted down. Another simple one that looks funny is the tripod shuffle. Just simply rest the tripod on your waist area. Also add the ninja walk. This one is skateboard roll. Now I was saying earlier in the video that sometimes you don't even need photography equipment, and to be honest, all you need for this is something with wheels and something you can rest the camera on. Now depending on what you're rolling the skateboard on, if it's gravel, concrete, it might get a little jittery, it might get a little bumpy. So to help soften those bumps, you can use just some felt, some fabric, maybe a scarf or something, and this really should soften out that smooth movement. And now let's see all the movements that we used for the sequence we made, but this time with the gimbal. First one is the equivalent to our skateboard shot. It's holding the gimbal upside down so you can get really close to the ground and have that really low shot. This one is the equivalent to our vertical tilt. It's putting the gimbal where you want it and then just using the analog stick just to move the axis up and down to give you that vertical up and down shot. Next, this is the equivalent to our horizontal pan. It's very similar to the previous one, where you're just letting the gimbal do all the work using the analog stick to move the axis, just to give you that nice smooth horizontal pan. The last one's a pretty basic walk, but we added the ninja walk in to make it extra smooth. So guys, thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video and I hope you did learn something, you know, a little bit if you wanted to buy a gimbal, if you don't want to buy a gimbal, and if you don't want to buy a gimbal, the creative ways you can go about getting the same similar kind of footage, maybe not, maybe even better if you're that creative, which I'm sure you are. Now as you did see, I wasn't doing the camera work for the sequencing as you saw in the beginning, and that was actually my cameraman. So what we might do in maybe a couple of weeks, what we might do, have a little interview with him and we'll see his input on whether you should get a gimbal, whether you should not get a gimbal, and just, you know, just his thought process on it all. But again, thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video guys. Please give it a like, give it a subscribe, and you know what, let's throw it in there, give it a share with your friends. We appreciate it a lot. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next episode.